This week, your reading began with the sentence, "For hours poor much afraid lay sleepless on her bed, too bruised in mind and body to rest in one position, but tossing and turning wearily from side to side." The phrase, "too bruised in mind and body," really made me think. See, we're accustomed to bruises on the body, but it's not common to think of a bruised mind. But if you really think about it, I would venture to guess that a bruised mind is more dangerous and probably more common than visible bodily bruises. Just think about it. As women, it doesn't take long for us to develop thoughts that hurt, and thoughts turned inward hurt us. Thoughts turned outward hurt others. So why does this happen so easily? The answer is pretty simple, but the solution can be difficult. The simple answer is this: God created women to be emotionally based creatures, and for the most part, this ability to connect our thoughts to our emotions serves us well, allowing us to feel and understand the needs of the heart. But as with all things, something good, if distorted, can also become something very bad. And this is where the bruising of the mind happens. See, when we allow feelings to be based on thoughts that are not connected to the truth, it bruises our mind. This connection to anything less than truth results in emotions that hurt. See, when your mind is jarred from truth, it hurts. This is why 2 Corinthians 10:5 says to take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. The Bible says a lot about our emotions, but it never says to take our emotions captive. Instead, we are told to take our thoughts captive. Why do you think that is? Because emotions can't be taken captive, because they are based on a perceived truth. See, our emotions are our response to what we believe is true. When we believe a lie, we begin to hurt. We bruise inside. It's that simple. This is why Romans chapter 12, verse 2 says to renew our minds. We must work to take our thoughts captive and continually check them with the truth that is found in Christ. This idea of being able to differentiate between truth and lie is so important that if you don't get anything else from today, please hear this. We as women must learn to filter every thought through truth. In Ephesians chapter 6, when it talks about the armor of God, the very first piece of armor that we're told to put on is the belt of truth. In Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, when we are instructed of the things that we should fix our mind on, guess what? The very first thing that it says is whatsoever is true. The things that we believe are true will influence how we feel. See, this is so important because your thoughts control your feelings and your feelings control your actions. So it is imperative, if we're going to stay unbruised in our minds, that we must fix our mind on what is true. Now, this is really important because in John chapter 14, verse 6, Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Jesus actually says that he is truth. But just as Jesus identifies himself as truth, so too our enemy is identified as the father of lies. So you see, everything at the very heart is a battle for truth against the lies that look like truth. Our enemy, Satan, is the best counterfeiter that ever was. He knows that if we're going to fall for his lies, they better appear to be truth. Ironically, as I prepared to talk about this, I have actually spent the last 2 days trying to tame a bruised thought living in my mind. See, a couple of days ago, a friend of mine, and I mean a friend, this is someone that I've done life with for years. We've celebrated together, we've cried together, we've sacrificed for each other. You know the type of friend. But a couple of days ago, this friend said some things that hurt. Now, I'm sure that they didn't even know that it hurt, but I was frustrated, and that frustration grew. And within a short time, my frustration turned to anger. Then after even a few hours, I shared something with someone else and my eyes started to tear up as I described my hurt. My emotions had spun quickly from frustration to anger to hurt. See, I thought I had it under control. But my emotions betrayed me. And soon the situation in my mind was bigger than I expected because my thoughts became lost in the flurry of negative emotions. Now, honestly, in my heart of hearts, I know this friend would never intentionally hurt me. But over the past couple of days, my thoughts have convinced my emotions and my emotions have convinced me. See, It's important to know that captured emotions, also known as bottled up emotions, lead to bad results. My feelings are real, and they're based on the truth that I'm believing. So to just capture those feelings and bottle them up, I'm setting myself up for an explosion of massive proportions in the future. Because if I try to take captive my feelings, I'm capturing and trying to bottle up or stifle something that's under extreme pressure. Have you ever seen the warning label that says, "Danger, contents under extreme pressure, handle with care"? This is the type of warning label that we as women need on us when we take our emotions captive. See, when the pressure becomes too much, one or more of the following emotions bubble up and explode out. For you, it might look like anger, or anxiety, or confusion, maybe depression, or hatred, or stress, or pride, or bitterness, or fear, or worry, or strife. I don't know, maybe it's something else. You fill in the blank. Regardless, it's not good to take our emotions captive. This is why Scripture doesn't say to take them captive. Yeah, we have to control them, but taking them captive is dangerous. We must not take them captive, but instead, we must go a step further back and deprogram them by taking our thoughts captive and making them obedient to Christ. Does this make sense? See, understanding this and implementing it in your life is a game changer for everything. This one tool takes power away from your enemy and gives it to your shepherd. So, in the situation with my friend, what does it look like? Well, first, it's now my responsibility to capture my thoughts and realign my emotions with the right truth, God's truth. I must either choose to trust my friend and choose to reposition my thoughts that have been based on lies and let it go completely, or I must go to my friend and discuss my concerns. Now, notice, different circumstances require different responses. There are some situations where it's right to just let it go by aligning your truth with God's. And there are times when it's better to talk it through with the other person after you align your thoughts with God's. In either situation, align with truth first, pray over the correct response, and then do what's right. See, this idea of taking our thoughts captive and surrendering them to truth is the first step toward humility. And as you read this week, humility is the foundation that allows love to grow. Over the past couple of years, I've actually been pondering a big thought that I think warrants speaking about for just a moment. So here's my big thought. Of all the character traits that are good, there are two that if we could really grasp them, really understand and apply these two things, help to align everything else. They are gratitude and humility. See, gratitude is not just giving lip service to the words thank you, but instead gratitude is truly understanding God's sovereignty and positioning yourself under His authority so that you understand your position in Him. It's this understanding that allows your heart to remain grateful to His sovereignty regardless of the circumstances. And we'll talk more about gratitude in a later study. Now, the other trait is humility. And we're going to spend some time unpacking this idea. So first, let's look at what is humility. Well, Webster defines humility as the quality or state of not thinking that you are better than other people, the quality or state of being humble. Now, I also looked it up in Google Dictionary, which is a more recent translation of the same word, and it says the translation of humility is a modest or low view of one's own importance. Humbleness. Now in Philippians, there is a verse that actually tells us what God's view of humility is. It says this, it says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but rather in humility value others above yourself, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of others." Now see, if we look at the world's definitions, Webster and Google, they're similar, but it's evident that one of them has a bit of a negative connotation to it. See, humility from a worldly perspective is often equated with having low self-esteem. Recently, one of my children was seeing a counselor, and the counselor kept saying that she needed to feel pride. Basically, the counselor was trying to get her to understand her identity and to be confident in it by being proud of herself. And as a mom, of course, I want my daughter to have confidence. But true confidence will come more from humility than from pride. Humility is embracing your identity fully as an image bearer of God. See, God created us to live in his image. When we reflect him, we submit to his authority in all that we do, and in every reflection of our life, we turn our reflection back toward him. I recently read a quote by Josh Butler that said, "Followers of Jesus are marked by a confident humility." Now, I love that it says confident humility. There is a confidence there. Humility is not lonely. The quote goes on, and it clarifies where our confidence is derived. It says, our confidence is in who God is. Our humility is in who we are. See, humility makes God our truth. It's based on truth. Pride is based on lies. Now, at the onset of the journey with the shepherd, Much Afraid discovered humility is the heart posture in which love can grow. So is it any wonder that the relative chosen to pursue her in an effort to thwart the journey and to return her to the valley of humiliation was cousin Pride? Pride says that we should get the glory. Humility reflects God's glory. James chapter 4, verse 6 says that God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. He gives grace to the humble. This means that he doesn't expect you to be perfect, but you must believe that he is bigger than any circumstance in life. Just a few verses later, within the same exact thought, verse 10 of that chapter says, "Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up." Today, we talked about two big ideas. First, taking our thoughts captive and aligning them with God's truth and choosing to live in humility, resting in God's authority. Truth and humility. This week, I encourage you to focus on these two things. Remember, he sees all. He knows every answer. He understands every hurt. He never misses a struggle. He's bigger than the sin that has ravaged his perfect world, causing so much hurt. But you must learn to lean into him. You must learn to trust him. God's truth is consistently faithful, and his authority is just. As we learned in this week's reading, sometimes the best teachers are sorrow and suffering. Of course, these are the two we would prefer not to have. However, it is through the challenges of life that we develop the muscles that we must have to live in the high places. The journey is an intentional process overseen by the shepherd. Will you trust him? Will you humble yourself under his guidance? Will you allow him to choose your journey? If so, then the sorrows and sufferings that he allows will be used to mold you and shape you. If not, they instead will cause you to be bruised in mind and body. The choice is yours.